We now come to clause 2, and already we have on the table an amendment from Fletcher Tabato, one from Dr. David Clark, one from Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Chair.
David Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What a fair chairman, Mr. Chair. It actually does speak well of the chairman, because I just had a wee confrontation off with him and he was still big enough to call me. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk to the commencement date. The commencement date is expressed to be when it gets royal assent, but then there are 2 exceptions to that, which are said that particular parts of the bill, once it receives royal assent, are of retrospective effect. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about why we need to take particular care in respect of commencement dates and respect of legislation that goes to rating retirement schemes, because the government's got prior form on this. This government, and the National Party that forms the majority of this government, is the same party that raided the earlier retirement scheme under Muldoon. They killed off the Kirk scheme, which would have New Zealand in a similar position to Australia in terms of investment capital. In fact, it was even earlier than the Australian scheme that followed it. They've killed off contributions to the Cullen Fund. We've already seen that that's cost the Cullen Fund $16 billion at current rates of return because of that folly. And now we have cuts to KiwiSaver, particularly the $1,000. Now, Mr. Speaker, as to the date, you've got to ask yourself this. The government's doing this as of today in the name, they say, of child poverty. When do their child poverty measures kick in? 1st of April next year. So the government's saying that they are a compassionate government because they recognise that there are many children, many thousands of children, living in severe poverty in New Zealand. They accept that these children sometimes go without breakfast, sometimes go without lunch at school, sometimes go without shoes, can never pay their school fees, just about never. They accept that we have serious hardship in New Zealand amongst children and that they need $25 a week. We think that's pretty miserly. Our policy was $60 a week per child under 3. But they say $25 a week because their circumstance is so desperate that they need more money for breakfast. And so those parents are going to go to their kids on Monday and they're going to say, next year you can have breakfast. That's right. Look at the eyes down over there. That is actually one of the fundamental flaws in this total budget package, which relates to commencement dates, is that actually they acknowledge there is a real and serious problem with child poverty now in New Zealand, but they're not going to fix it till the 1st of April next year. This in a wealthy country. But what will they do this year? This year, they will kill the KiwiSaver kickstart payment effective of budget day, backwards. Not April next year. They'll take that off people next year. Now, you know, that kickstart payment is deliberately progressive. The Labor Party designed it. We do things that are progressive. $1,000 to a low-income person is worth a lot more than $1,000 to a high-income person, partly because of their marginal tax rates and partly just because their income rate is lower. So the progressive payment of $1,000 per person is progressive. They take that away today, but the people that they say are in poverty now don't get breakfast till next year. That sums up this government. That's how much they care. They care not enough. Now, we accept that $25 a week next year is better than not getting $25 a week next year. We said we'd get $60 a week into those pockets of those kids and poor families per child for the first 3 years of their life from this year. But you know, we didn't win the election, they did. We also weren't going to cut the Kiwi Start payment. We were actually going to spread it over 5 years as we got everyone into the scheme, but we were not going to cut it. Mr. Speaker, the commencement date of this legislation is worthy of note because it highlights the fact that the government pretends that they're worried about these children living in poverty who can't get breakfast this year, but they're saying you won't get it till next year. Mr. Speaker, I want to return also to the why is it that they've got a commencement date for reducing one of the incentives to KiwiSaver now, when we've got a current account deficit that's blowing out, that we've got exports dropping.
David Clark, the Reverend Doctor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I know that they were eager on the government benches to hear my contribution, so I shall not disappoint. I have moved that there be a change to the bill that would ensure that this Kickstarter contribution is not withdrawn until 2018, and that would allow a future Labor government to make sure that this continued as it is now, because this is a government that is determined to take from New Zealand's future in order to pay for their mismanagement today. It's a government with no plan. They've got their heads down opposite. They know it's true. They are trying here to take $1,000 off future generations, of 500,000 Kiwis in the next 4 years. That's what they're doing here with this bill. Make no mistake if you're watching this at home. They are taking $1,000 off 500,000 Kiwis for their retirement savings, because they haven't managed the economy well, because they have failed to get to surplus, and because they're trying to make it look like they haven't missed by too much. Actually, the books are $1 billion worse than they were last budget. They are doing